At our new church, I was sitting in the church nursery one day, and a new friend, we were watching this is when I just had one at the time, watching our little boys run around in the church nursery as toddlers. And she told me she was writing a novel. And when she said that, I was like, what? Like, it was like, I don't know how to explain, like fireworks almost in my chest, like something like, I want to do that. And so looking back now, like, it's so unrealistic. Like, I just had my high school diploma. I had no training in writing. I didn't have a college degree. I had no money to pursue anything. But I'm like, I want to do that. And it was just something that from that moment, I knew it was something I wanted to do.
From the Florida Parent Educators Association, home of the largest homeschool convention in America, this is the Not by the Book podcast. I'm your host, FPEA Chairman Suzanne Nunn, and together we will hear from guests who share their journey to who and where they are today. Each one of them at some point left the expected path, ripped the page out of the book that says you have to do it like this, and made their own way. I hope these conversations inspire you as much as they do me. Today I get to sit down and talk with author Trisha Goyer. Tricia shares her story of finding a life that is filled with love. Isn't that what you would expect from an author who writes romance? But Tricia's story is anything but what we might expect to hear. Her real life journey is so much better than the fiction. Listen with me now as she shares her story.
So I actually grew up in Northern California, just an hour shy of the Oregon border. And so that's a very different California than most people think. It was up in the mountains. It was a little mill town, 3,500 people. Oh, wow. My grandpa worked at very different. My grandpa worked at a door factory. Okay. But I was born to a single mom. So she had me when she was 20. And so she married my stepdad when I was 3 or 4, right around there. So I always remember him being there. And then my grandparents, I would say, were very influential. I had a really, really good relationship with them. My grandma's Hispanic and, always cooking enchiladas and tamales and, Sunday dinners around the table. And they lived in a mobile home park. So not a lot of money. No one had a lot of money. Yeah. Very simple with my mom, my stepdad, my grandparents, some aunts and cousins. And then I had a little brother. So he's 4 years younger than me. But I would say I was very different than the rest of my family. Okay. I loved imagination, and around 5th grade, we moved by a library, and I was at the library all the time. I would check out tons of books, bring them home. I won awards. The summer reading program was my favorite thing ever. Taking home tons of books and getting my picture in the paper for all the books I read. But my family was very different. I don't remember anyone ever reading a book other than me.
That's funny.
My dad had sports on all the time, constantly any sports or watching HBO movies. I mean, just very different. My mom, my stepdad that raised me was, because I didn't know my biological dad, my stepdad that raised me was a police officer, and he's also a Vietnam War veteran, so very distant. So he was there, but not conversations, just very, very, very distant. And so my mom did a lot with me. Not emotionally connected at all. He just passed away in July. And I got to be there. Him and my brother, it's my brother's biological dad. Yeah. And just, and I'll just a little side note, but he was a Vietnam War vet, and he was having a lot of flashbacks. Right before he passed away, he had cancer and was not doing well. And it made me realize, this is all these years later, I'm 53 now, how much trauma he faced in Vietnam. And the fact that he just held it all together and had a job, was able to provide, because he was a medic and he saw a lot of trauma. And so, and we saw that in some of the flashbacks he was having. And so I guess I appreciate him more now that I ever have, because when I was little, he was just super distant. But now that I know more about PTSD, a lot of veterans are homeless and not connected with families. I mean, the fact that he raised us and he was, a police officer taking care of people. I mean, now I appreciate that. But when I was little, it just felt like he didn't love me, or he, didn't really care. He was just super distant. So
it's interesting that you say that. My father was a World War II veteran. And it was always interesting to me because I loved history and I loved all the historical fiction around the wars. And, it was interesting because he would never talk about it. And he just didn't. And I think that that's a part of the survival and how they can, have a family and live their lives and everything. This is this compartmentalization.
Yes.
And removal of some of those things that they put to the side. And they go on with life as normal because that was far from normal, to live through what they lived through. So
absolutely.
So that's so you were very different. I love you loved the summer reading because I did too. I also really loved the scholastic sales for books when they came to the schools. Right?
Absolutely. Yes. The
Favorite
little sheets, that came through and you get checked off. But we didn't have very much money. So I usually didn't get very many books, but that was like a highlight.
Same. It was a highlight of the year. So you loved reading. So we have a little bit of a clue to your future there, but what else did you do?
Yeah. So I think because my stepdad was so distant and just I was very independent. I grew up very quickly and was interested in guys, like boy crazy. And I think just looking for love in all the wrong places. I had 2 teen pregnancies, which I've talked about and written about. I had an abortion when I was 15, which is something I really regret. Just I was 15 and scared and went to a Planned Parenthood clinic and they're like, oh, we're just scraping away a few cells. You don't have to worry about it tomorrow. I mean, that sounded like an easy out to me, which looking back now, it's just lies and deceit. I mean, just so many years of pain and shame. Yeah.
That sounds, like you said, the experience, I think, of a lot of young girls that experience pregnancy and the fear. Did you have your mom with you during those times, or was that a decision that you made?
Yeah, no, I had my mom with me, and I think that she was trying to help me. Like looking back now, I mean, I wish she'd have said, no, we can do this. I don't know. I just think she was just trying to help me. And also, I mean, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know all the pain and shame and heartache and all that. I think she was just trying to help me and
you were
there
15.
with me. And I was 15. Yeah. And then I got pregnant again at 17 and chose to have the baby. So I dropped out of regular high school and went home pregnant to finish my credits. I had been an honor student, so I didn't need that many credits. Finished my credits at home. My boyfriend was completely out of the picture. And it was that time that my mom and my grandma had started a Bible study, and they were growing closer with God. They invited me to come. And growing up going to church when I was little, I just remembered like the joy of the teachers and the church community, and I just knew now I had to get serious. I was going to be a mom, and that's when I really dedicated my life to God, is when I was pregnant at 17. Like, okay, I have messed up. So I need to do something differently. Yeah. And that's really when I started seeking God.
I mean, grace and mercy play a role, right? But I'm sure you experienced in that time when you were starting to just walk with the Lord that there was enough grace and enough mercy to cover any of those decisions or choices in your life. And your mom and your grandmother seem to be a close part of your family. So close to you. I know even now your grandmother. Is this the same grandma?
Yeah, the same grandma. Okay. She lives downstairs. So I'm up in my office and she lives with me. She's 95 now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, very close to my grandma.
So you had a good support system then, even though you had, again, a teen pregnancy that you were facing. So how did it look after that? You had the baby.
Yep. And well, actually, during that time when I dedicated my life to God, I started praying for a future husband. I'm like, I want someone, because my boyfriend was completely out of the picture. Right. And I just started praying for someone that would love me and love my baby. I didn't know what I was having.
Mm-hmm.
Had a little boy who's 35 now.
Crazy.
But yeah, I know. And I just started praying for a future husband that would love me and love my baby and love God. And started going to church. And it was actually the pastor's son that I'm like, he's kind of cute. And after I had the baby, he actually came over to see me and brought a card and a teddy bear and just like trying to be friendly.
Yeah.
He like organized like the young people in our church. He's 4 years older than me. And I'm like, oh, and then our moms worked to set us up, which shows you the big change in my life because I would go to church sometimes before with my mom during my teen years. And once he had been in the military, John had been in the military, and he was home on a weekend leave, and he saw me and he asked his mom, like, who is that? He's like, she's Tricia. Stay away from her. She's trouble. And he listened. But years later, after I had a baby, actually his mom and my mom were like working to set me up. And so that just shows like the change in my life and heart and just attitude, everything. It was so clear that my mother-in-law was like, yeah, you should ask her out on a date. So we started dating and we got married when Corey was only 9 months old. So, I mean, talk about God answering prayers really quickly. And John and I have been married almost 35 years now. So
that's crazy. So he has been there then and parented that baby with you, and you guys have had, so you got married. You were still pretty young.
I was 18.
Yeah.
18.
So what were you doing? Did you have any aspirations for anything other than motherhood and being a wife at that point?
Well, my plan was to become a school teacher.
Okay.
I wanted to be a school teacher. I started going to college. I did a year and a half of college. I just started local community college, and then we ended up moving for John to go to college, and it was just too much. I got pregnant again with having little kids and trying to go to college, and so really it was just that I was just going to help him get through college, and then I was taking care of the kids. We lived in a tiny apartment. He delivered Domino's pizza in the evening. It was it's just like we're the struggling college student family. Me home with the babies.
Yeah,
but it was right around that time when we moved for him to go to a different college. We just moved like an hour and a half away. At our new church, I was sitting in the church nursery one day, and a new friend, we were watching this is when I just had one at the time, watching our little boys run around in the church nursery as toddlers. And she told me she was writing a novel. And when she said that, I was like, what? Like, it was like, I don't know how to explain, like fireworks almost in my chest, like something like, I want to do that. And so looking back now, like, it's so unrealistic. Like, I just had my high school diploma. I had no training in writing. I didn't have a college degree. I had no money to pursue anything. But I'm like, I want to do that. And it was just something that from that moment, I knew it was something I wanted to do. I had read... During my pregnancy, I had read Love Comes Softly by Jeanette Oak. I had started reading, after I got married, Bodie Taney's World War II novels. And so I loved those books. And this is like,
those are aspirations very much, right there.
Yeah, there wasn't very much Christian fiction around. And it's like, oh my goodness,
there really wasn't.
I want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. But those were some early, and again, you're reading those people, and those are aspirations because those were good. They were good novelists. So you had that first, like, I want to do this. How did that play out for you? Because again, you are a parent of young children. You're still pretty young yourself. Husband's in college. How did that look for you to think about actually starting to put pen to paper? Yeah.
So my friend Cindy and we would get together, like we'd take our kids to the playground and we would talk about writing, and we would write stories, which went nowhere. We heard about some local writers groups. And so we're like, okay, let's do that. And by this time I had my second one. So we would just like talk on the phone. It was a lot of talk about writing, but not really writing very much. It was just like, let's do this. Or I checked out books from the library on how to write. It was a lot of like learning about it, getting excited about it, but not doing a ton. I mean, just the kind of learning process. But we went to a local writers group. It was a secular writers group. We didn't even know that there's like such thing as a Christian writers group, but we went to this writers group, and we were sitting there. I brought my baby. So Corey was like older toddler, and my baby was in a little stroller, like the little umbrella stroller, to this writer's meeting. Like, I'm going to be a writer. And looking back now, it just cracks me up. But I did. And they were talking about writers' conferences. And, but of course, this is a secular conference. So they're talking about, go to the bar and meet the editors, get on your bikini and get in the hot tub with the editor. And I was like, like this young mom, like, what am I getting into? But then they mentioned that the Writer's Digest magazine from that month had a list of like 100 conferences.
Wow.
So Cindy and I walked to the bookstore from this meeting. We put our money together. I mean, this is how poor we were. We put our money together to buy this magazine to talk about conferences. And one of the conferences in there was the Mount Hermon Christian Writers Conference in California.
Okay.
And but we had just missed it. It had been like 2 weekends before. So we're like, we're going to go next year. And I babysat. I saved money.
Wow.
I ended up writing them. They had like a scholarship program. I got a scholarship to go. And so we left our 2 little babies. She had 2. I had two little babies each at home. And 1993 drove down to this writers conference. Like, we're going to be Christian writers. And I had just started a novel like a couple months before. And our worries were like, what if more than one publisher wants to publish us? Which again, like so unrealistic. But I think I'm so glad, we didn't know the whole reality, how hard it is to get published and all the writing things. It was just like this adventure, and we were young and
young and naive.
Really cool. Young and naive for sure.
But isn't that the best time sometimes, I think, to put ourselves out there just too, because sometimes being naive is the best thing, right?
It is.
You'll put yourself out there.
You're just running after the dream. And I remember the first time we showed up, they had you could eat lunch at the tables. That different editors and professional authors had tables, and you could just sit by them. And I remember it was like a children's book editor. I remember my knees shaking so bad under the table. I don't know if I talked to the woman. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting at the table with a real editor.
That's so funny.
So yeah, it was.
Now it's even funnier to know where you are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's incredible. So that was your first writers conference. And where did things take you from there? Like, did you go home like, I'm not doing this anymore? Give up?
Oh, no, I went home. Well, it was so fun because you meet other people. The other people, everyone has the same dream, which is really cool. And then you could submit stuff for people to critique. Okay. And it was basically like, don't use too many was verbs, use active verbs. I mean, it was basic. I still remember and I was taking notes. This is the most insightful thing ever, which looking back now was basic grammar and I don't know, story, whatever. So then I went home and I took a class on children's book writing. But I realized from that conference, it's going to be really hard to write a whole book and get published. And so I said, well, we had already planned to go the next year. For the next year, I'm just going to write little articles. I learned about the Christian Writers Market, which is a book that lists all the publications and what they're looking for. So I went home that year and wrote some little tiny things. And then the next year when I went and submitted it, and by this time I was pregnant with my 3rd baby, I actually got an article accepted. And I think that was just God's grace. A little short story article thing accepted because I didn't get anything else accepted for 5 years. And so I was God was this little here, this is just a little morsel of something to keep you going on the path. But my friend Cindy and I, for 5 years in a row, went to that conference. And the second year, I ended up meeting other authors. And, there's no Facebook. There was no social media.
Yeah.
Different people I had met. I got their email addresses. And when I got home, I was reading the book, What Happens When Women Pray. And so I emailed, I think there's 15 of them, or 15 of us total, and just said, what if we just started doing updates and praying for each other on our writing journey? And so everyone would send me their prayer requests. And then once a week, I would compile them, write a little devotional thought and email it out. And that went on for 11 years, every week, everyone, until we all got, every single one of us got published. Okay. Every single one of us has books until it got so busy when we were doing book deadlines. It kind of petered out, and then we're on social media, so we connect that way. But for like 11 years, every week, everyone would send me their updates. I would put them all in one document, write a little devotional thought, and email it out to everyone else. And so right away, God brought this amazing community of women around. Some that were already published, some like me that were new, and we just prayed each other through, kept each other accountable, encouraged each other when we, it would have been easy to give up. I mean, that Robin Jones Gunn is one of them. She was just such a mentor all these years to me. Now I've written some books with her, but it really was those conferences and those editors and professional writers pouring into newbies, and then the community of women that just prayed and encouraged, and we just lived life together that really, really made a difference.
And that's really amazing, though, that you were together that long. I mean, what a great way to be an encourager to one another, for that many years, honestly. But also, I love what you said. Everybody had the same dream. And then by the end of that time, everybody's been published, right? Yeah. So how encouraging that is. Not only that, but encouraging to each other, but encouraging in your dreams and encouraging you to go forward and keep moving through that process, because it is a hard process to go through writing a book, not to mention the 500 you've written since then.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's been a lot.
I know it's not 500, but it's like you've written so many books. So you did get published. How long did it take you after you went to the conferences to publish your first book, and how many children were running around while you did?
Let's talk about all the kids and homeschooling. So I got that little article publishing it. Anything else published for 5 years. But then I took another workshop on magazine article writing. Again, I was working on book projects. I had even gotten an agent because of my friend Robin Gunn connected me with an agent. We submitted some stuff, didn't get published. But I figured I need to get some practice. And so I started doing magazine articles. I did a lot for Home Life magazine or different homeschool magazines that were growing in that time, because homeschooling was a new thing that was really happening. This is in the mid 1990s, early, 94, 95, right around there. So I wrote for homeschool magazines, and it wasn't until 1999 that I ended up doing a book for Focus on the Family that was, at the time, it was called Mealtime Moments. Now it's actually still in print. It's called Wits in Mealtime Moments, I think. Wits in Mealtime Blessings, something like that. Anyway, so that book's still in print, and it was a work for hire. They had contacted Janet and asked for someone that could work on that. But I think the amazing thing is, because I was homeschooling and I did have kids at home, I actually think it was a benefit to me. Because I would homeschool in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I would set up Barney on the DVD player or CD player. No, VHS player. This is how old this is. Barney on the VHS player. I'd set up Play-Doh. I'd set up little PlayStations, actual, not the PlayStation, but little blocks and different things, stations. Yeah. And then for 2 hours, I would just write something. And I think that has really helped me, because I have been able to, develop that muscle of I could sit down and just write for a couple hours, because my life is still homeschooling and busy. I don't have, a lot of my friends had all day long. I remember one friend, her kids were grown. She had her all day at home, and she wasn't getting writing done. So she thought she needed an office. So then she got an office and really wasn't getting writing done. And for me, I just had homeschooling and kids and this field trip and this homeschool group. And so then I had 2 hours in the evening or afternoon, and I would just sit down and get stuff done. And so I think that really has benefited me, because I've written books in the front seat of cars on family vacation. I've written on airplanes. Whatever I could just
I've grasping the opportunity.
Yes. Yeah. Every moment I have, I'm I got 10 minutes. I could work on this scene or whatever, has really benefited me. And then my kids have been with me. We travel. They get to go to conferences with me, writers' conferences or homeschool conferences. When I speak at events, they get to meet other authors, book signings. I mean, they get to experience a world where there were many years, though, I will say, that I thought I was a horrible homeschool mom, because I was taking time to do this. I wasn't doing play dates every afternoon in the park, or I'd have to say no when they were doing different things. And I'm I'm just such a horrible mom. I also helped start a crisis pregnancy center during that time, which, because from my own experiences, just needed to let other young women know that there is hope, there is different answers. And so I was writing a little bit, helping with the pregnancy center, homeschooling. And I just thought, like, I'm horrible. All these other moms have all day to just be with their kids. And looking back now, especially that my kids, that first set of 3, which we'll get into that, is older, and seeing how they're involved in ministry. They love God. They're all writers. It's God knew. And I think I just want to give that encouragement. If you have kids at home, like, following your dreams is something God will use for you and for your kids when they see you doing that.
I think that's true and very wise, because I think that so much of the time parents invest in what they think it's all about the children, but sometimes the biggest investment is the children living life with you while you're pursuing your dreams and while you're doing things that are important. And, I know I have 2 sets of kids, and the older set I sometimes, think could never have gone through like what I do now very easily. I was doing something different. I had a different career at that point. But the way that those things played out in their lives, has been very interesting. And now I do conferences and I travel more and I do the things. But the 2 kids that have been at home while I've gone through that and have gone along with me on all of that, it's just so obvious how they've just soaked that up and why they needed that in their lives. It's very clear. But when you're walking through it, you do feel that way. Like, man, my kids don't get to do whatever.
Yes.
Because I'm doing this, and so it's an interesting journey for sure as a homeschool mom who's working and doing something else. So you had 3. I do want to go back to your family a little bit and how your family has grown along with your writing. But so tell us more about your kids and how you were walking through building your family while you were building your writing career.
Yeah. So I had Corey, and then Mary John, and we had Leslie and Nathan, who they're now 35, 32, and 30. And loved homeschooling, loved family. John and I served in children's church for many years. And as I'm reading God's word, it talks about caring for orphans. And like, it just kept coming up. We had a friend that adopted a baby girl from China. Like, it just, how when God's calling you to something, it just keeps showing up everywhere. Yeah. And so I had brought it up to John, and he's like, we're so busy. Cause I was writing, I was doing homeschool conferences. Like, I don't think so. And then years later, I'm talking like 7 years later of me it's not like I was daily praying, but it was something that I would bring up and pray, and knew that unless both of us were 100% on board, that it just wasn't. So I brought it up maybe 2 or 3 times to John. And then around 2005 or 2006, I just had mentioned it. And John later came back. He goes, are you still really interested? Like, is this a real thing, interested in adoption? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I think we should do that, because I think God had been speaking to his heart. So we actually had first tried to adopt from China. That was when there was a lot of baby girls being adopted from China. We heard about the need, and we did paperwork, and our paperwork had been in about a year when we got a phone call that said China has basically shut down. Unless you can take a special needs, a high special needs child. And I just remember being crushed and like climbing into bed. Like, this is the middle of the day, climbing into bed and crying, because it had been like 7 years of me praying, and then like a couple of years of getting our paperwork and all this stuff. And so we're thinking like, this is going to happen soon. And then it's like, it's not going to happen. And I just remember like, God, I don't understand. If you called us to this, why it's not happening. And then it wasn't like an audible voice, but it's like, well, maybe that's not your kids or kid. I didn't hear S on there yet. Yeah. But and so just praying like, okay, whatever child you have for us. And it was probably like an hour of me like crying and being upset. Then like, oh, okay. And just like open-handedly, like, I'm yours, whatever you have for me. Like, it's your plan. Like, I had a plan, but it's your plan. And it was literally that same day that I was taking my grandma, because she's lived with us for 25 years now, to Walmart. And as I'm driving, my cell phone rang, and it was someone I had met at a MOPS group. I didn't even know her very well. And she said, I got your number from a friend. Are you still interested in adoption? And I said, yes. And she goes, because we have a distant family member who has decided to place her baby up for adoption, but she's already 7 months along. And I'm like, that's not a problem. I was just hours earlier, like sobbing because we found out that we were not going to be able to adopt. Crazy. And then here's this. And I'm like, yeah. She goes, actually, she saw you and she's been watching you on Facebook. And it was like, I'm so glad I didn't know, because I'd been like, look at me making cookies or whatever. But so we met her. And so 3 months later, we adopted Alyssa, who is now 14, as a newborn. And it's that time we moved from California to Montana during that time. And now, right when Alyssa was born, we moved from Montana to Arkansas. So it was like major life changes of a big move and a new baby. And our oldest son got married and our daughter decided to stay in Montana for a time. And then I had it was just a lot of transition during that time.
Stuff going on. So what's the gap between your oldest 3 and Alyssa?
Yeah. So between my oldest and my youngest is 22 years.
Okay.
So Nathan was 15 when we adopted a newborn. So there's 15 years. There's a 15-year gap.
Yeah. So that even just is like brave in and of itself. When
Starting
you're like,
all over. Starting all over.
Starting all over for sure. So you adopted Alyssa, and then I know you added the S. So
yeah. Yes.
Your heart must have been overjoyed at this. So in the prospect of having these other children. So how did you come about adopting the others?
Yeah. So I had mentioned we moved to Arkansas, and Arkansas had a large need for adoptive families. There were at the time like over 600 kids in the foster care system that were already open for adoption. That means their parents' rights had been terminated. There was a lot of abuse and meth use and lots of kids in the system that needed families. And so they would have heart galleries, which I never saw this in Montana. All of a sudden we're going to churches and there's these huge walls of photos of kids that need homes. And it was like,
wow.
Here I was crying because I didn't think we could adopt one. And now we come to Arkansas and it was like walls of kids that needed homes. And so when Alyssa was around 2, and extremely spoiled because she just had like all these adults all the time. Yeah. So, we should probably consider adopting more. And so we went through the training through the foster care system, and we did not train to be foster parents. We did training to adopt from foster care. And I think that's a difference that people don't understand. The foster parents are like, you have to do visits with the biological parents. I mean, this was just kids that were already available. Also, it didn't cost anything, which it did cost. We had spent money in China. That didn't happen. We spent money for private adoption. And now my husband had taken a ministry job and didn't have money. But from foster care, you don't have to pay, which is something people think you have to spend a lot of money to adopt, and you don't from foster care. But we said, we're open to a sibling group. We're open to any race, anything. And they placed us with Casey and Bella, who were 2 and 5 at the time, who had been moved around a lot. They had a lot of, they acted out. I'll just put it that way. They had a lot of behavior issues. And so that was a challenge because it was very different from adopting a sweet little newborn.
Right.
It's easy. But God brought us through that, and we got awesome counseling, trauma therapy counseling, local support groups. And then I thought we were done for sure.
Yeah.
And I had been mentoring teen moms, and so many of these young women who were in foster care ended up leaving foster care and immediately getting pregnant. And then they're couch surfing and living in different places. And I remember telling many times my husband, like, someone needs to adopt these girls that are in foster care. Like, someone needs to do something about this. Like, this is a real issue. Like, we have to help people. And then it was like God tapped my shoulder, like, why don't you do it? I'm like, I already have. We've already adopted 3. But very clearly during one worship service at church, God's like, a sibling group of girls. I mean, it was just like clear. And I remember getting in the car and still crying and telling John, like, we need to adopt a sibling group of teen girls. And he's like, yeah, we do. Wow. And I ended up contacting that organization. It's called Project Zero. And she said, actually, we just got a photo of 4 Hispanic girls between the ages of 11 and 14. And I just think they're supposed to be your daughters. And I'm like, I think so. So then we filled
4.
in the middle. 4 at one time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So is that all that you've adopted?
Yes. So 7.
So 7 adoptions,
Mhm.
10 kids altogether.
Mhm.
Right? That's
Yes.
crazy.
I know.
And how
I know.
how old is your youngest at this point?
14. Right.
14.
Now, he's 14.
Okay.
Yeah. And our
Incredible.
oldest son is 35. So that's a big,
It's a gap.
almost 36. So that's a gap. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's an amazing story. And while you were doing those things, and honestly, God gave you a passion for those children. And a lot of that probably from your own journey of dealing with the things you had dealt with in your life. But you still had this passion to write and to homeschool and to do all the things. So have you homeschooled all of your children then?
Yes. Yep. So we homeschooled all of them. The only time they were not homeschooled is when we first brought the girls home. So they had to be in foster care 6 months before we could finalize the adoption. And in that time, you could not homeschool.
Yeah.
So they were in public school, and it was really hard. It was really hard.
That would be really hard.
We had 4 in public school for a while, and I'm telling you, homeschooling is way easier. You have so much more control of what they learn, the people they're around,
everything, schedules and everything.
Schedules, yes, everything, yeah.
Schedules might be the most important. It's like, schedules can really make a difference. But so you were still writing, and when did you get your first book published? Where in the process of all of this?
Yes, that's so I did that work for hire in 1999. We only had 3 still, and then I probably did 20 books before we started adopting. So and people are like, how did you have time? I'm like, well, this is over lots of years. Like this is over lots of years. So I mean, my first writers conference was 30 years ago. So I've been publishing books for 25 years. I mean, that's a long time to write books. And then I learned how to write faster. I know how to like plot a novel in 2 hours. It's just different because it's something that I've been doing for a while. And so my first solo novel, like not just a work for hire, what came out in 2003, it's a true, inspired by a true World War II story. It's called From Dust and Ashes. And then I did mostly World War II, and then I did some other historical novels. Then an editor asked me if I wanted to do Amish when Amish became popular, and I thought, you're crazy, because I didn't know any Amish people. Then I remembered I did know some former Amish. Anyway, so God has just continued to open the door. I haven't had, I used to say, I haven't had a day that I didn't have a contract. And then I got to the end where I'm like, oh, I actually, at this moment, don't have a book contract. And then the next day, my agent called me with the news I got another book contract. So I had like 24 hours since 2001 that I haven't had a book contract, which has just been the grace of God. And I love it. And I will say that writing is such a joy, and it is, being creative is fun, and it energizes me. So it's like people say, how do you have time to do that? And it's like, it's a fun break from parenting to sit down and create story and to come up with things, even social media and marketing. I mean, it's easier dealing with kids from trauma and doing all that stuff sometimes. So it's been a joy. I mean, my kids are a joy too, but it has been a joy to continue to write, to continue to be creative. I mean, I just was away in Washington State meeting some family, and I came up with like 2 full book ideas while I was there. Great. So my agent gets all these emails all the time. Book idea.
Book ideas. I think that one of the things that you're talking about with being a creative, and I think that it's important to recognize that, when you're doing something you love, it doesn't seem like the work. I mean, yes, there's work involved in these things, but people who love art and create art, people who love to write, people who love to, create pottery, whatever it is, those things are somewhat therapeutic in our lives. And so it may be work, still involved, and there may be, bumps along the way and ups and downs, but I think there's still the joy in it that you experience just by expressing those things. And you're artistic in other ways as well, aren't you?
I
Not
love
just writing.
I love watercolor painting.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting because, again, my family that I grew up with, my mom and my grandparents, they didn't read, they didn't do art. And then I met my biological dad later. And that whole family, it's just so interesting. And my mom and my grandma became Christians when I was in elementary school. This whole family on my dad's side that I met later, artists, writers. I just met my cousin for the first time. He creates documentaries through story. We came from a line of missionaries, that circuit preachers. It was like, oh, this is where I came from, which is just amazing how God does that. Isn't it? Yeah, it's amazing.
It's kind of hardwired in there. I mean, it is incredible. So you met your biological father later, and I am going back to this, I think, just because a lot of the thing that's important to me about sharing these stories is that there's so many people out there who see us, see you doing what you're doing and the success, right? And I think that the stories sometimes do get a little bit lost in that because, now you really look like you have it together and you're this homeschool mom of many and doing all the things.
I still don't have it together. My house is if you see my desk right now.
That's what we would all say. We would all say this, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the important part of sharing our stories and the reason that I wanted to even have this podcast is because we all have things that we have to deal with that are hard and overcome and places that we feel like we had lost or didn't have things that we needed. And so you had a father figure in your life. You talked a little bit about how that was kind of a distant personality because of who he was and what he had experienced. But when did you meet your biological father and how did that come into play for your life?
And I think this goes back to the theme of worth. And I think when probably around 6 or 7, that my stepdad wasn't my biological dad. But I would always felt like he knew I was out there, but I wasn't good enough. And that's just kids get things in their mind.
Yeah.
Of course he's not around, so I'm not good enough, for him. And so I told myself I was going to lose 20 pounds and I was going to get a book published and then I would find him. So it's like these things you put in mind. Well, finally got around to God healing me from a lot of those feelings of low self-worth. And I realized I don't need, I just need to know who he is. I don't need to feel worthy in his eyes.
Right.
And so I ended up one day, I think I was 28 years old. So it was even before I got a book published. I ended up calling my mom hey, can you tell me more? And so she gave me his name. And this is again, when the internet is pretty new. Right. And I ended up searching for him and he was an insurance agent in San Diego. And my mom's like, you mean call him? I'm like, yeah. And the phone rang back and she's like, he wants to talk to you. I'm like, what? And he was the nicest guy, super talkative, found out I had 4 sisters, which I grew up with one brother. And my favorite movie growing up was The Parent Trap.
Yes.
I was so sure that I had a sister out there. I was positive I had a sister out there. And I love The Parent Trap. Turns out I had 4 sisters. And so he was telling me all about them. The first time we talked, I think we talked for a couple hours. Okay. And I was on cloud 9. He's like, I'll call you tomorrow. And then he didn't call. And then he didn't call. And then he didn't call. No. So by the 3rd day, I finally called him. He goes, oh yeah, I talked to my wife. She's not happy. She says if I have any relationship with you, that she's going to divorce me and that you can't meet your sisters. No. I'm like, what?
What a disappointment, right?
It was a disappointment. And and part of me is well, I'm going to go find them myself. You told me their names. But I felt like God's just be patient and just wait. It was very strong, impression from him just to be patient. And then years later, 6 years later, I was speaking at an event and I went back to my room, checked my email, and I had an email from my sister, Leslie. I have a daughter named Leslie. I had named my daughter Leslie, not knowing I had a sister, Leslie.
Oh, wow.
And she said that he had, I guess the day that I had first connected with him, he told them they had a sister, but didn't tell the name. And then once his wife said that, he's like, I can't tell you anything about her. And so for 6 years, they kind of wondered. And then my sister Leslie kept asking and asking and asking. And finally, he gave her my name, my website. And so the first email I got was like, we are so excited. And she had gone on my website and she had taken their family photos and like you look at your daughter looks like this person and your son looks like this person. And right away, they were super accepting.
Wow.
So I was able to meet them. And then a couple of years passed and then we were like kind of meet in secret. Like we went down to San Diego once and met up at Knott's Berry Farm and their mom didn't know. And finally, like, you got to tell your mom. Like we're like sneaking around. And so we told her she was not happy. But she said, oh, I don't even think that's his daughter. And so I paid for a DNA test and it was 100% positive, which if you saw me and my sisters, I look so much like them. And so after that test came through, it was like in February when we got the test results back. Around Easter that year, I ended up getting this huge box in the mail of all these homemade cookies and stuff. She was a big baker. And it said, love your wicked stepmother. And I think that was like her way of like seeking forgiveness. And we're cordial. I wouldn't say we have a good relationship.
Right.
And I don't even think I have a really good relationship with my biological dad, but I love my sisters. And then we found out we had a brother. So my dad had a daughter, had a son, and they got married and had 4 more. And so we communicate multiple times a week. We have a little Facebook Messenger thread. We're always talking. We get together when we can. So, and then just this last weekend, I was able to meet my uncle. And then his wife, and then one of my cousins who had never met before. Okay. And me and my uncle and cousin just sat there and went through family photos. And my uncle told the stories. And my cousin's super creative. Like, it was weird. Like, he tells stories through video and I tell stories through books. And we were like brainstorming book idea / story, like documentary ideas. And it was like,
that's crazy.
The same kind of brain in 2 different people. It's really interesting. So, yeah. And I think a lot of people that don't have those feelings of who am I, or I'm not worthy, or people have rejected me. I mean, I think we all have that. And I think once we get rooted in really knowing that God created us for a purpose. And even though I was just some college fling, during the Vietnam War, he left town because he went to a college because he didn't want to be drafted in the war. God had a plan. Like, God knew who I was. He knew a plan for me. And then all those genes, and I don't even know how that works, of those writers and missionaries and artists, somehow they
landed right there.
They landed right there. Yeah.
But that's amazing. And I think it's like, it must be a bit refreshing for you too, to have gone through those years of your life without that connection. And then to see that and to see, from the very beginning, before you were born in your mother's womb, God was knitting something together there that was, something only he could do, right? Because it just was a natural thing for you to gravitate in those directions. And then, but how neat to find out that there was more, there. And I want to talk for a minute too about your multi-generational home, because that's one of the things that, as I got to know you and watch your life on social media, like all of us get to do, that it was just so encouraging to me to see you in a home with all of your children, homeschooling, creating, writing, doing all of the things that you do. But the way that you love your grandmother and the way that she's a part of your home. And I didn't realize she had been there for 25 years. Yeah. But that's incredible. I mean, she must have loved children too, because you brought a lot of them home during that time.
Yeah, she I think once we started getting the 4 girls, like, she never learned their names because they're all Hispanic, they're all dark hair. She'd be like, hey, you, and she was older by that time. Yeah. But I do think it kept her young. So my grandpa was 13 years older than her. Okay. He met her after World War II when he came back from the service. So he was quite a bit older. So he passed away when she was pretty young. But he told her, you're going to go live with Tricia. Like, he told her that's where he wanted her to be, because I think he wanted to make sure she was taken care of. And we were super close. And, John and I are very stable, which a lot of my other family is not. Was not, yeah. But she's been here. And with all the kids running around, they're running into her room, they're talking to her. I think it does keep her young. In fact, I just heard statistic that if people in nursing homes, not that there's anything wrong, I mean, there's people that need to do that, but they live like between 2 or 6 years longer if they're in a home surrounded by young people and surrounded by family, because they're always running and checking on her. Still, like my grandkids were here for Christmas and staying with us. And I'm like, who is able to care for their grandkids and their grandmother in the same day? And my grandkids were running in there to see their third great grandma and like, hey grandma, and chat with her. And she's like, hi there. You know, it's just like, this is not typical, but it's also a blessing. So, and it's also really hard. Like, she's completely bedbound now. She can still talk. She sleeps a lot, but she, you know, she can still sing hymns. But I always have to, when I leave town, I always have to have someone caring for her. Yeah. You know, it's, and then I've been having back problems because I have to turn her and wash her. And I mean, it's not easy work. It's not easy, but it's also like, she'll just sing with me. And last night she's like, I love you. Good night. And it's just like, okay, that's worth it. Like just to have grandma here.
Well, I think that it's such a, I guess just a testament is the best word to how important family really is and in our lives. You know, I think that, I mean, both of my parents, or I've lost both of my parents at this point and all of my grandparents. So when you get to that place and you're like, you realize I'm like, now I'm in the oldest generation of my family because, you know, you really think even a little bit more about like, well, what does that look like down the road? And I think that it's a blessing, but I also think it's an honor to be able to care for those elders. And, you know, my parents we had my grandparents in my home when I was young and growing up, and it was a little weird and awkward sometimes because of their particular different illnesses that they dealt with. But what a blessing it was. And I think that your children will be blessed by that so much. I mean, you are as well, but I think your children will be. And just that sense of family and that sense of home and that understanding of what it means to take care of someone is just really important, you know?
Yeah. And the lessons that grandma teaches us. I remember there was probably like 6 years now, she had fallen and broken her back. She had a fracture in her back from falling, and she was in a back brace, and we were homeschooling. So one time I had 7 kids I was homeschooling. We'd sit around the dining room table. I'd read a lot. I just read. Yeah. I just read because that was the easiest thing. And we did our math and language and stuff, but I read a lot of books, like hours a day. And I remember one time we were sitting there reading, and her bedroom's right off our dining room. So, and she had just come home from the hospital. She's in a back brace, in pain. And I'm reading out loud, and she starts singing hymns. And my 16-year-old at the time, she's 22. She's like, Mom. And I stopped reading. She goes, if she can sing and praise God when she is hurting and has a broken back and can't move, I think we complain too much. Yes. I think you're right. And it was just like those moments where, because she is older, she will get us to like realize what's really important. I'd be running around trying to get kids out the door. She's like, these are the best years of your life. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get someone to find their shoe right now, you know? And I'm all stressed or whatever. We have to run out the door, and just to have that constant reminder, like, okay, you're right. Yeah. These are the best years of my life. I need to appreciate it. Slow down. She says, sit down and rest. You're doing too much, or, you know, just having, and to hear her praying for all her kids and grandkids, and always know, like, people are like, how can you do all you do? And I'm like, I got a praying grandma, like downstairs in the bedroom.
But she's praying. That true? Yeah, it's so true. I think, you know, it's one of the things that somebody asked me one time, what she missed about not having your mom. And I was like, knowing that there's somebody praying for me all the time. Like, really, because you know that when they're there. And so it's precious. Those are just precious things. And I love watching that interaction with your family from the distance, because obviously I'm not in Arkansas, but just, well,
if you come over, you can come meet grandma. People will be like, oh, like they're in town. Like, I'm like, you want to meet for coffee? Like, can we come to your house so we can see grandma? I'm like, yes, you can come see grandma.
I want to see grandma. Yeah. She's a special lady though. She really is. So I know we haven't talked as much about like what you're doing right now in writing, and you have written how many books that you had published?
It's over 90.
You've lost count.
It might be over 100. I don't know. I've lost count.
I was going to say, I was talking to my daughter about interviewing you, and I said, I think she's like written probably about 100 books, honestly.
I think it's probably 100. I need to sit down and just like count now.
Yeah, to go through them. But you haven't lost your passion and desire for that. So you're still working. Is there anything exciting that you're working on right now that may be new or interesting?
Well, okay, this is really cool. Like thinking about a homeschool mom that I felt so guilty. I actually had a book published with my son.
Yeah.
He's 30 now. And so we have our first one, Breath of Bones, is around here. But
Yeah.
it's Breath of Bones. It's a World War II historical fantasy.
Okay.
So it's like based on true World War facts. And it has an awesome faith message, but it has dirigibles, and the Nazis have spider tanks. So it's all his like
awesome.
creative stuff. And we're working. So that's book 1 is called Breath of Bones. Book 2, Flight of Fate, comes out in June, and we're working on book 3. And so yesterday we were just brainstorming, as we're working on book 3, and like I'm like, talk about homeschool mom dream. When I'm like, I don't know what we should do with this, and he comes up with this idea, and I'm like, oh, that's it. That's what we need for the book, and it's like awesome. Like it's awesome. My daughter is a university professor. I got to sit in one of her classes. She lives in Europe, but it's like we think that we're taking away from our kids when we're following God's dream. Again, I just have to keep going back to that because the fact that I can write a book with him, 3 books with him, it's just so fun. And then I just have a new one that just came out last week with Sherry Seligson. Seligson? How do you say her name?
Yeah.
Seligson. That's it. I'm like, she's my co-author. I keep messing up her last name. But it's a science storybook. And so it's called Wonders of the Ocean Realm. And we took her because she's a marine biologist. And I know you know her really well.
Yeah.
We took her science facts and I wrote stories to go around. We have 5 different creatures that we're following.
That's
a
fantastic.
Sea star, a peacock mantis shrimp, a humpback whale, a mimic octopus, and a deep sea anglerfish. And we just wrote stories around them. So that's super fun. It's like mixing the homeschool with the fun.
Yeah. So that's your most recent published.
Yes. Wonders of the Ocean Realm. It just came out last week. Yeah.
What are you working on? Are you working on one by yourself? Anything currently?
Yeah. So I have, not by myself. I have a parenting book with Leslie Nunnery.
Yeah.
It's for preteens. It's called Faith. Or parents of preteens. It's called Faith That Sticks.
Okay.
And then I'm working on a novel. It's called As Sure as the Stars is the working title. It's like a split time romance type of book. Yeah. I always have multiple things going. I'm working on some more Amish books, but it's funny because most of the things I'm working on now, I'm working on with somebody, and I realize I really like the collaboration of bouncing ideas off, and it's now that I've written lots of books by myself. I mean, I still can, but it is fun when you can bounce ideas off and you could co-write stuff. Yeah.
That is, I can imagine that would be fun. One of my favorite things to do is brainstorm. Like seriously, that's like a fun pastime for you.
Yeah, so it is. I love it. But yeah, I'm writing an Amish novel that'll be out this year. That's a solo one. I don't have a title for that yet, but it's part of my Big Sky series, which is my best-selling series. But anyway, so there's a lot that I'm working on, and every day it's like, what do I get to work on today? It's fun. I love it.
I love that. Well, I am looking forward to seeing what you come up with next. I know that you've had a lot of your fingers in a lot of different kinds of topics and genres, and it's exciting. I think that that's exciting just to be able to be diverse enough, because there are a lot of authors who are just kind of a one focus, and this is all that you ever really see or get. But watching what you have written and watching your journey is just inspiring, because so many of us, like I'll have one thought of doing something that's like, all this one theme over here, and then the next day it's like, oh, a totally different theme over here, because our minds are like built that way, I think, to think in so many different, places and explore creativity in so many different ways. And so I always enjoy seeing like, what is your next thing?
And I think a credit to it is going to homeschool conferences and talking with other parents, because I'll get things like, after we adopted, I got lots of questions about what you do with kids from hard places. How do you deal with anger? So that became calming angry kids. Or they'll say, oh, you know, do you have a book for girls talking about their future husbands? Okay, well, that became praying for your future husband. Like, so a lot of it, when they walk in and say, do you have a book about this? And if I have multiple people coming and seeking that, then I'm like, actually, I should probably write a book about that because, or if I'm giving talks about something and people that it resonates, like Faith That Sticks. That's how Leslie and I wrote that book. People were asking a lot about preteens. There wasn't a lot written for parents of preteens, and we ended up writing that. So, and so it really is that community makes a huge difference.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share with us? I do like to ask this question, and it's interesting to ask an author, I think, before we're done. And I'm putting you on the spot here because I can give you a heads up.
Oh,
but
it's okay.
Is there a quote or something that someone said to you that really like either resonated in your heart and stuck with you through the years that kind of brought you back, or that is there now that it really sticks with you and you remember that in your mind, that quote, the words that were shared with you?
Absolutely. And I think it actually just ties perfectly with what we were just talking about is we get these different creative ideas, and one might be over here and one might be over there. When I first was pursuing, so it's a little story leading up to the quote, but when I was first pursuing publishing, I would go to a conference and like you hear like, we're looking for books for teens, and I would just try to write and it was just hitting walls. Like, because an editor needed something, I thought I should do that, but it wasn't a passion, and it was just hitting walls, and I got tons of rejection. And then I did the Experiencing God Bible study with Henry Blackaby.
I love that.
And that thing that probably goes over in my mind every single day and really helps me is just see what God is doing and join him. And that's it. Yeah. See what God is doing and join him. If it's adoption, if it's foster care, if it is like, if you like, again, you hear something over and over again, if you're praying and God can bring something to mind, if a scripture, if someone asks you to join them, or you have gifts and talents, see what God is doing and join him. Like, we often think we have to figure out our plan for our life. I could have never, like, you're going to adopt 7 kids and write 100 books and care for your grandma. And it hasn't, like, it's just one step at a time. If there's an open door that opens and it's peace there, peace from God there, walk through it. You never know. And so pretty much, unless I feel like, like a check in my spirit, which I have got those before, if the door is opening, I'm like, okay, let's see where this goes.
Where it goes.
Yeah.
That's a great quote. I loved that Bible study, by the way. I did that, and it was a lot of impact, I would say, over the years of my life. But I do love that quote. See where God is and join him.
Yes.
That's great. So, well, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Joining me, and thank you for sharing your story. Thanks for listening to the Not by the Book podcast from the Florida Parent Educators Association. To learn more about homeschooling in Florida, or to find resources to help you on this amazing journey, visit our website at FPEA.com. If you have any suggestions for future guests, contact me, Suzanne, at notbythebook@fpea.com. Thanks again for listening, and be inspired to live your life not by the book.